In Japan, a nation renowned for its pristine reputation and impeccable order, dark corners lie hidden beneath the facade of apparent perfection. One such corner was laid bare during the tragic summer of 2016, when the quiet town of Sagamihara, nestled in Kanagawa Prefecture, witnessed an event that shook the entire nation. This was the massacre that occurred within the walls of a facility for individuals with disabilities, known as the Tsukui Lily Garden. The crime, conceived and executed with icy detachment, exposed not only the monstrosity of human nature, but also the deeply ingrained issues within Japanese society. Satoshi Uematsu, a name that would forever be etched in memory as a symbol of evil and reckless cruelty. The young man, who had recently worked at the Tsukui Lily Garden, where he was supposed to care for those in need, seemed like an ordinary fellow. Instead, he transformed into an executioner, bringing to life a nightmarish plan which, he claimed, was for the greater good. The thought of what he planned, like snakes, coiled around my mind. It is difficult even to imagine how one could harbor such a design, knowing that you're about to take the lives of people you are supposed to protect, people who entrusted their fate to you. Sagamihara, a city steeped in tranquility and greenery, wasn't typically associated with violence. Life moved at a measured pace here. People lived, worked, and raised their families. Then, the peace was shattered, its silence ripped apart by screams of terror. Uematsu had grown up in this city, attending its local schools, seeming like an ordinary young man. But beneath the calm exterior lay an unstable mind, torn apart by inner demons, ready to break free. His path to crime was tortuous and tragic, just like the fates of those who fell by his hand. The Tsukui Lily Garden was a sanctuary for people with various disabilities, a place where they could find shelter, support, and most importantly, a sense of security. The institution was designed with the residents in mind, offering them comfortable conditions and professional care. It was here that Uematsu found employment, full of hope for helping and improving the lives of those in need. However, for him, this place became the breeding ground for madness. Signs of strange behavior began surfacing long before the tragedy. Uematsu frequently expressed conflicting ideas about people with disabilities, dividing them into categories. He considered some worthy of life, while deeming others a burden on society. These views were shocking in their extreme cynicism and contempt for human life. Whether this stemmed from personal experiences or the influence of outside forces remains a mystery for researchers. In the summer of 2016, when the air in Sagamihara was fragrant with the scents of summer festivals, Uematsu began to put his monstrous plan into action. He seemed to act methodically and deliberately, not allowing any doubt about his resolve to creep in even for a moment. In his inflamed mind, a mad idea was brewing. The world would be better without people with disabilities, and he had to rid society of this ballast. The desire to destroy these people, whose vulnerability he saw as nothing more than a heavy burden, was his sole purpose. On the night of the 26th of July, 2016, when most residents of Sagamihara were peacefully asleep, Uematsu began his terrifying acts. Armed with a knife and a hammer, he infiltrated the Tsukui Lily Garden, taking advantage of the sparse night staff. He meticulously studied the layout of the rooms and the habits of the personnel, Everything was planned down to the smallest detail. He began his bloody path through the bedrooms, attacking the sleeping residents. His victims included young and old, men and women, all defenseless against his furious rage. Screams, chaos, and terror reigned within the walls of the Tsukui Lily Garden that dreadful night. The shocking fact remained that Uematsu had essentially become a hired killer, granted the opportunity to act with impunity. His actions were not a random outburst of violence, but a meticulously planned and executed crime, pursuing a specific, monstrous goal. By the time the police arrived, Uematsu had inflicted fatal wounds on 19 residents of the facility, and another 26 people were injured. This tragedy became one of the most massive killings in modern Japanese history, writing a bloody page in the annals of madness. The bloody insanity had cut short the lives of those who needed protection and care, plunging their loved ones into grief. It's still difficult for me to comprehend the full scale of the tragedy that befell those people. After committing the monstrous act, Uematsu surrendered to the police. During the interrogations, he maintained an icy calm, expressing confidence in the correctness of his actions. Uematsu claimed his goal was to rid the world of a burden. He spoke of his plan as a way to ease the burden on society, failing to understand that his actions were the most terrible burden of all. His confessions and complete lack of remorse only amplified the public outcry, sparking a storm of indignation. The question of his mental state, of his sanity, became key during the investigation of this monstrous deed. Psychiatric examinations revealed that Uematsu had mental disorders, which, however, did not absolve him of responsibility for what he had done. The investigation into the tragedy in Sagamihara revealed new and ever more dreadful aspects of this horrible event. The investigation had to determine not only the motives that drove Uematsu to commit the crime, but also how his monstrous ideas were able to form and take root in his mind. The media immediately seized upon stories of his peculiar behavior and pronouncements leading up to the tragedy. Details emerged about his many workplace conflicts, his highly unusual interests, and his attempts to justify his inhumane ideas. It was also discovered that Uematsu had tried to send a letter to the Japanese parliament. In this letter, filled with madness and hatred, he outlined his plans, proposing to get rid of people with disabilities, whom he considered useless members of society. This letter further confirmed his beliefs, shocking the public and causing a wave of outrage throughout the country. During the investigation, the quality of care for people with disabilities in Japan became a major point of contention. Uematsu's death exposed deep wounds within the healthcare and social protection systems, revealing blatant flaws and long-standing problems. This tragedy also revealed the full extent of the stigmatization of people with disabilities in Japanese society, their isolation, and the lack of understanding from the majority. One of the most bitter aspects of this horrible story was the reaction of Japanese society. Most people, horrified by what had happened, expressed shock and condemnation, not hiding their indignation. However, alas, there were those who supported Uematsu. Some even attempted to justify his monstrous actions, citing outdated and savage views on the usefulness of certain members of society. This fact testified to the deep roots of discrimination and prejudice, to the enduring nature of medieval ideas about the value of human life. During the court proceedings, the defense tried to portray Uematsu as not being in his right mind, seeking to mitigate the sentence. But the court, having carefully studied the testimonies of witnesses, The results of numerous expert examinations and relying on obvious facts came to a completely different conclusion. The court found him fully responsible for his actions and delivered a severe sentence. Uematsu was sentenced to death. This sentence became a reflection of the general outrage and the desire for justice, an echo that reverberated throughout the entire country. Although such a measure could not bring back the lives of innocent victims, it undoubtedly demonstrated that society would not tolerate violence and cruelty, that every life mattered. After the sentencing, a heated debate about the death penalty erupted in Japanese society. For some, it was a way to express deep compassion for the victims and their families, a tribute to the memory of the deceased. For others, it was a controversial issue, raising complex ethical questions, prompting reflection on the value of human life and the boundaries of justice. The tragedy in Sagamihara became a serious shock for Japan, like a thunderclap from a clear sky. It forced society to reconsider its views, to take a fresh look at the treatment of people with disabilities, to contemplate the need for greater attention to mental health and issues of social justice. This tragedy touched the hearts of millions, making them empathize, sympathize, and realize the fragility of human life. Personally, it seems to me that this story should serve as a reminder to all of us that human life is priceless. Reflecting on what happened, we cannot help but touch upon the issue of stigmatization of people with disabilities in Japanese society. How important it is to be more tolerant and kinder to each other. Traditional views, cultural peculiarities, and perhaps even economic factors often put them on the sidelines of life, condemning them to exist in the shadows. Many of them faced open discrimination, agonizing isolation, and complete lack of access to the most necessary resources. The impact of the tragedy on public opinion turned out to be ambiguous, like a storm in a teacup. On the one hand, she stirred sincere empathy and a burning desire to help within the hearts of people, citizens across the entire nation, as if a single organism began actively participating in charitable events, giving their last possessions and signing up as volunteers. On the other hand, this tragedy, like a brilliant beam of light, revealed deeply ingrained prejudices and fears, lurking in the darkest corners of human souls. These prejudices needed to be eradicated, erased from the memory of the people like a nightmare. For the families of the victims, the tragedy became an unbearable loss. Grief overwhelmed them, like the ninth wave, unleashing its full power. Psychological traumas, like venomous serpents, sank their fangs into their very hearts, and they had to find the strength to live on. After experiencing a nightmare that had forever left its mark on their souls, many of them, gathering the last remnants of their will, found the strength to fight for justice, tirelessly striving for changes in society. The impact of the Sagamihara tragedy on the Japanese justice system was enormous. She compelled a re-evaluation of investigative approaches, the tightening of security measures in institutions for people with disabilities, and improvements to the mental health care system. It was an attempt to erect a barrier against the recurrence of such a tragedy in the future, to do everything possible to prevent such a nightmare from happening again. In conclusion, what happened in Sagamihara wasn't just a tragic episode of violence. It was a reflection of deep-seated social problems, ingrained cultural prejudices, and possibly the moral decay of society. It serves as a harsh reminder that we are obligated to combat cruelty, hatred, and discrimination in all their manifestations, even the most subtle ones. This event, like a sharp splinter, reminds us that human cruelty can manifest in the most unexpected and monstrous forms. Uematsu wasn't a demon from the underworld. He was a human whose consciousness may have been warped by inner demons and likely social pressures. Reflecting on this, we must ask ourselves the most important question: how can we prevent similar tragedies in the future? The answer is simple, but devilishly complex in its implementation. We must build a society founded on compassion, tolerance, and mutual respect. A society where everyone, regardless of their abilities, has an inherent right to life, dignity, and happiness. A society prepared to fight prejudice and discrimination without reserve. The tragic story that unfolded in Sagamihara compels us to reflect on the fragility of human life, the importance of caring for those around us, and the necessity of an unyielding struggle for justice and humanism. This is a challenge for each and every one of us. It serves as a bitter reminder that we must be vigilant and ready to confront evil when it, like a serpent, slithers into our lives. I can only hope that the memory of those who fell victim to this terrible tragedy will be eternal, and that their names will become symbols of our determined fight for a better world. Picture it: silent shadows in the Tsukui blooming garden will forever remain in our memory, a reminder of how human cruelty can shatter even the brightest of hopes. But at the same time, this tragedy reminds us of our shared humanity, that we are connected by invisible threads, and of the importance of an unending struggle for justice and compassion. For it is in our capacity for empathy and understanding that hope for the future lies. The hope that someday the world will become a better place.